If you want to brainwash yourself to succeed, there are 3 fundamental things you need to know. In this video, I am going to show you what they are so you can understand what's actually driving your behavior and how to change it. Hi, I'm Jodie, a neuroconditioning specialist who uses neuroscience to train your brain for high performance so you can rewire reality for the results you most want. There is a lot of good content that you can find about goal setting and discipline to be able to help you achieve success. But if your brain is not wired for the results that you're chasing and your nervous system is not regulated enough to hold it when it arrives, it doesn't matter how clear the goal is that you set. It doesn't matter how disciplined you are. You will not get there, or at least if you do, you will not stay there. And when people don't get the results that they want, they treat it like it's a character issue, right? I'm not motivated enough. I'm not disciplined enough. I just don't have what it takes. But hear me now, believe me later, it is not a character issue. More often than not, it is a conditioning one. The system is not designed to produce the results that you want. In this video, there are 3 chemicals that I want to talk to you about that will condition you with a new character and that will wire you to win. Before I tell you what these are, let me tell you why they matter. There is a simple experiment that I read about in Lisa Rankin's book, Mind Over Medicine. You take a cell, you put that cell in a petri dish, and you change the chemistry around it. What happens? The cell changes. It begins to behave differently. If it is surrounded by stressful or toxic chemistry, inflammation rises, repair slows down. The cell goes into defense mode. But when that same cell is surrounded by supportive chemistry, the cell begins to heal and repair. It goes towards growth mode. It's the same cell. You put it in a different environment, it behaves differently, and you get a different outcome. And why I am telling you this is because you are the cell. It's the same you. You put it in a different chemistry, you get a completely different result because you get different behavior. When the cell wasn't performing well, it wasn't because the cell was weak or broken, it was sitting in the wrong chemistry. If you change the chemistry, you change the behavior, you change the result. And the chemistry that affects you, it isn't random and it's not fixed. Your brain produces it, and it can produce more or less of it depending on how you condition your mind. So I want to talk to you about the 3 chemicals that really matter. 3, right? These are fundamental for success and some of the real drivers behind why some people get consistent results and others don't. And when you learn how to work with them, you stop white knuckling your way through life and stop forcing discipline. Instead, you start producing the chemistry that naturally creates the behavior that drives the result that you want. So let me tell you what these 3 are. The 3 chemicals that your brain produces that decide if you are wired to win and exactly how to make more of each one of them. So the first is dopamine. Dopamine is one of the most important systems shaping human performance. And everyone thinks of dopamine as the pleasure chemical. It is not. Dopamine is the motivation molecule. It is the chemical of anticipation. It doesn't fire when you get the reward. It fires when you anticipate the reward, when you have that feeling of possible pleasure. And because of that, it influences what you actually pursue, what you repeat, what you stay motivated to move towards. And most people think, if I have more dopamine, I'll be more motivated. But that's not quite how it works, because it's not just about quantity, it is about quality. And what I mean when I say that is, what is your dopamine attached to? Because whatever your brain learns to associate with reward, and that can be emotional significance, it can be pleasure, success, novelty, or even relief. But whatever your brain begins to associate with it, your mind will begin to drive you towards whatever it was that produced it automatically. And this is incredibly important if you care about your results, if you care about your performance, your success, or building a meaningful business or life, because your motivation loops are either wired towards what you want or they're wired towards what you don't, because those motivation loops exist with or without your participation. You can unintentionally train dopamine around distraction, avoidance, validation, urgency, or short-term relief, or you can train your dopamine around growth, progress, discipline, creativity, contribution, even meaningful achievement. And you can do that by design, because the brain is always learning what feels rewarding. And over time, whatever it learns is rewarding, that becomes automatic. That's why two people, they can live completely differently despite having access to exactly the same opportunities, because one more naturally goes after them and the other one doesn't. And that's because maybe they've conditioned reward around comfort and immediate gratification, and the other has conditioned, intentionally or unintentionally, reward around progress, around challenge, and around long-term vision. One of them feels the resistance towards difficult but meaningful work, and the other feels driven by it. They can't help but pursue it. And that difference, it matters so much, because high performers, they are not simply people with more willpower or more discipline. Very often, they've trained their reward system differently, so they go after things more naturally. And if you want to begin training your reward system for the things that you actually want, one of the best ways that you can do this is celebrate. Right? Celebrate every action that you're taking towards it. So many people wait to celebrate until they actually reach the goal, right? They reach the result. They delay all of that celebration until they arrive. And it's why they may not sustain themselves in the journey. So if you want to link dopamine towards what it is that you want, the results you want, celebrate every single time you take a step in that direction. Don't wait for the end result. Celebrate the action. And celebration is so important, and you're going to see it in the next chemical too. So chemical number 2 is serotonin. And this is, once you've gone after it, this is the staying power. And this may surprise you, because it's the one that actually decides whether you get consistent results, not just one-off. Everyone thinks serotonin is happiness. It's not. Serotonin is this kind of staying power, because if you want consistent results, starting is often never the problem, right? That's dopamine. That's the spark. Everyone gets that spark. The problem is that boring middle, that beginning, that novel excitement is gone. And maybe the results still aren't here yet. And that is the moment most people will usually quit, or they will sabotage, or you will tell yourself you'll do it again Monday. But staying power, serotonin, is actually what carries you through that. And I think one of the biggest misunderstandings is that people think discipline alone can create consistency you need to carry you through that messy middle, right? And it's not enough. Consistency comes from the brain feeling safe enough to continue, from having those serotonin signals. Because when you're working with high performers, the truth is, most people know what to do. The problem is sustaining it long enough for them to actually see results from it. And that is where serotonin is so important, right? Serotonin is deeply connected to emotional stability, to regulation, and to resilience, and the ability to actually stay steady over time. It helps create that internal feeling of, I'm okay, I'm progressing, I can keep going, I trust the process. And one of the most powerful ways that we can strengthen that chemistry is surprisingly simple, by actually registering our wins, right? Not just rushing past them, not minimizing them, not immediately moving on to the next thing and moving the goalposts further away. Actually taking a moment to let your progress land, to register it, to notice it. Because so many people, they live in a constant state of not there yet. They achieve something, and instead of letting their nervous system absorb that evidence of growth, of capability, of progress, they instantly focus on what's missing, what's next. And so the brain never receives that signal of safety, that acknowledgement of achievement, or that feeling of enoughness. And so the nervous system, it stays in stress, right? It stays in striving. It stays in that state of urgency, right? And urgency, it is difficult to sustain long term. This is why so many people, they start strong, and they fade out. It's not because they suddenly lack ambition, it's because their nervous system never learns to feel safe in the process. The brain needs evidence that the effort is working. You register the wins, and you know what? You celebrate them, because that increases dopamine and tells your brain this is worth going after again. It makes you have evidence of the progress, that it's happening, that who you are is becoming real, that the results you want are actually coming to pass. And when you begin to consciously register growth, even small growth, right? Something else changes. You build trust with yourself. You stop relying purely on external validation, on immediate results, or on these kind of emotional highs to continue. You create staying power to register the wins. And then there are some foundational things that quietly support that chemistry as well every day. Things like sleep, things like sunlight, movement, connection, even rest, recovery. These are the things that modern life often pushes people away from, but they are the very things that stabilize the mind most powerfully, especially when you're going for growth, when you're going for results. So if you start strong and fade out, maybe you don't have a motivation problem. Motivation, it comes and it goes. Consistency is a serotonin thing. So number one, dopamine, it points you towards what feels rewarding, or at least what you anticipate to feel rewarding. Serotonin gives you the staying power to keep going before the results arrive. And there is one more system that decides whether your mind actually locks onto the target that you want or it keeps scattering. And that is norepinephrine, right? It is the chemistry that determines your focus. And if you don't have enough norepinephrine, you become unfocused because you feel flat or you feel foggy. But if you have too much of it, you become unfocused because you start to overthink. Your brain goes into hypervigilance mode. So you want that sweet balance. You want enough to be able to feel alert and feel focused, but not so much that you're wired and anxious. Now, the mistake most people make is they try to schedule focus instead of creating the chemistry that makes focus possible. And one of the key blockers of this chemical, stress. Because when your nervous system feels under threat, your brain stops asking the question, what can I build? What can I create? What can I imagine? And it starts asking, what do I need to protect myself? And that is why stressed people, they can often struggle to focus because their brain has shifted into protection mode instead of performance mode. And how do you get that sweet spot, or at least help move towards it more often? And this may sound counterintuitive, but essentially putting yourself under short, controlled bursts of stress, of discomfort, because it helps train your system. Things like an ice bath or a challenging gym session. They spike that norepinephrine on purpose and then it lets it settle, right? The difference is control. Chronic stress happens to you, this you choose, right? And it ends. And if you do this often enough and every day, pressure stops tipping you into threat mode. Now I have a whole video coming out about how to create the conditions for extraordinary and effortless focus. So if you want to be notified when that goes live, just hit subscribe. For now, the one thing that you need to take away from this video is that most people are trying to change their results from the outside in. They are trying to force behavior, force discipline, force motivation. But your behavior, it is downstream from the chemistry that your brain is living in. If you create the right chemistry, then you change naturally. You create the right conditions to change naturally, to behave differently and produce different results, just like the cell in the dish.